Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker. How is everybody doing? Well, right now it's just you and me. Oh, look, there's people. Hi, everyone. Come on in. We have such a big show
Welcome.
today.
Come on.
Olga Lautman and I were just talking about how it's almost felt like Friday, but it's not Friday. It's not Friday. It's Thursday. It just feels like we've already had a whole week of news. Very, very early
And
on.
Monday was Memorial Day, so that
Right.
was
Good point.
actually quiet. So between Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, it feels like a week worth of insanity.
Well, it's all going to be tracked here today. It's day 129 of the Trump Tyranny Tracker as we go through every excruciating detail of how the Trump administration is eroding democracy and also instituting an authoritarian state in America. And there's been so much news, but the really big news of the last 24 hours is all about a federal court that has struck down Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariffs. It's a big blow to the centerpiece of his economic strategy, which has obviously caused chaos around the world. The ruling halts key revenue streams the administration was counting on, and it also complicates pending trade deals. If they ever have those trade deals, unclear if they've got any deals. This is a big deal. The tribunal here has really caused a big change in the Trump's trajectory. Tell us what you think.
I can't even stop laughing about this because thank goodness for the courts. I mean, they've really, really, put slowed down this insanity and all these illegal actions. And honestly, right before we just came on, it's not even in print news yet. A second court ruled that his tariffs are illegal.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah, I went to check and it hasn't hit the print news, but as I was walking out on CNN, they had a breaking news and then went to commercial. But look, it is amazing because Trump came in this time very prepared. I mean, the first time he was lost, he didn't understand Washington. He didn't know how everything worked. He didn't have the Republican Party fully captured at that point in 2017. And over the past few years after his insurrection, he has managed to really like take control fully of the Republican Party. And he came in completely prepared. And as dictators, I mean, same thing happened with Hitler, that when he came back the second time around, this is when he was extremely brutal and successful and in executing the atrocities. So here, Trump, this time, they were beyond prepared between the Project 2025 and whatnot. And you saw him, you know, sign off hundreds of executive orders. And frankly, everything that he has done is illegal, including the tariffs that now the courts ruled, the Alien Enemies Act they ruled is illegal, this unauthorized Doge, I'm sure. I mean, many judges have who've heard the cases have indicated that this is unlawful because it was not an agency authorized by Congress. And I mean, all I have to say is thank God for the courts.
Mhm.
And we really have to defend the judicial system because yesterday, on yesterday's tracker, we had a whole segment on how judges are not only under attack and how the threats to judges and their families, primarily their families, has increased pretty much fivefold, over the past month. But also the fact that they don't trust the U.S. Marshal Service to protect them, and that now they're figuring out how to create their own law enforcement arm, which leaves us in a very scary situation because they are the ones, stopping this. And even with the Russian scientist, Trump had ICE had seized her, and the courts basically again indicating this was an illegal action. She yesterday was, released. The judge ordered for her to be released and to be, on bail until the court hears her case.
I love everything you're saying, of course, because what you're saying is the American Constitution does actually work, that there are checks and balances in the U.S. Constitution, and the judiciary is really one of the key ones that really has so far really held up and has done tremendously in all these cases, as you point out, in tariffs, in Doge. Doge is still to come, but you're right. Ooh, and And also with the Aliens Enemies Act, I think you're absolutely right. Those are such a great assessment of how well these courts have stood up and how important the judiciary is, and their safety of these judges, as you point out, is paramount. It doesn't mean that there weren't victims. I mean, lots of people lost money in the tariffs war as he was, pumping and dumping the stock market for whatever purposes. Some people made a lot of money that are inside the government, insider trading.
Yep.
There's lots of evidence of that. And a lot of individuals also lost a lot of money. So, it doesn't mean the crime didn't happen. It just means that in some ways the courts have been able to neuter the big economic impact that this would have had, because this would have had a tremendous long-term bad impact on the American economy.
And it doesn't mean it's over because
Yes, true.
they are appealing it. And I mean, ultimately, this will, I'm sure, go to the Supreme Court fast track. And then it'll be very interesting to see what happens because, one, Trump right now is frozen with having any deals that, all 500 countries on this planet are running to him for deals, including penguins. But, we
That was a
haven't
great
yet.
meme. I thought of you when I saw the meme earlier on I think it was on Substack. Actually, I saw a meme where it said the penguins were celebrating with their big win over the tariffs at the Penguin Island. I just thought of you because I know you love the penguins. So that was very
But
good.
yeah, no, I mean, because really, this, why I keep harping on the penguins?
Hmm.
Because it just shows you the incompetency of this.
Hmm.
I mean, had they been smart, they wouldn't have carried on and used, an emergency act with the excuse that they use, and they would have actually formulated a real strategy behind the emergency that maybe would have had some weight, in court. But they are doing everything so quick, and at the same time, these people are so stupid. I mean, to tariff penguins or a US base, an island that just houses a US base, just shows you this. But it's not over. This is going to go, I'm sure, to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, interestingly enough, we'll see, because for the recent rulings, they don't seem to have an appetite to allow Trump to run around and do whatever he wants. They
Not
have,
anymore. Yeah.
yeah, they seem to, be putting some kind of check on him. We'll see. And then it'll be interesting if ultimately these his, illegal tariffs are, this ruling is kept. What happens to all the businesses? I mean,
Hmm.
every single business that has suffered since February basically can file a lawsuit against the government saying that their policies created this, their illegal policies and actions created what is happening not only with the economy but also with businesses. I mean, the repercussions are huge if this ruling holds.
Absolutely. That's what I meant by the victims. I mean, those people have restitution claims and they will probably be filing those. So, absolutely. Did you see Trump's reaction to the taco question yesterday? The Trump always chickens out. It's a great expression. But he was
He
full.
couldn't quite understand it, but
Uh,
more so than his reaction to the him trying to figure out what taco stands for
yeah.
besides Taco Bell. Did you see his instinctive dictator,
Oh, yeah.
thug quality? Like
Absolutely.
you shut your mouth, like basically like a
The
mob
nastiest
boss.
question I've ever heard,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
attacking the reporter for the question. It's just so typical of these like authoritarian leaders to be doing something like that.
Well, I learned two things: that
Mm.
there's a taco acronym going around for Trump, and that there's an international trade court in New York City. I didn't realize it was based in Federal Plaza, but right away I Googled which court.
Oh, it's in Federal
I mean,
Plaza.
I
That's
knew of
interesting.
the court, I just didn't, I frankly have nothing to do with researching that aspect. And I was like,
It
oh,
may be
this
the
is
first
right
time
in New
Trump
York.
entered this courtroom. He's probably been in every other courtroom. Not he's actually
and,
entered there, but has
and
appeared there.
to just end this,
Yeah.
to put a stab in his back, it was one of the out of the three panels, one of the judges was the one that he appointed.
Yeah, it's interesting. The tribunal seemed very independent. I mean, there's certainly no indication that there was anything political in there. So, yeah, and Trump's one of the appointees. Let's move to the very troubled Pentagon now, where Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered deep cuts to the Pentagon's independent weapons testing office, slashing staff by half under the guise of saving $300 million annually. Now, this office actually serves as a critical oversight function, and it reviews military equipment for safety and effectiveness before deployment. It seems like such an important thing to do before deploying serious weapons, but not according to Hegseth. He's cut this office dramatically. He's in the midst of another scandal. What do you think of what's going on?
Apparently, this is another DEI thing to actually have oversight and test, make sure that weapons that are sent overseas and military equipment is safe enough for, our military to use.
And other
No,
military,
this
presumably. I mean, we sell this weapons too, you know?
exactly. I mean, again, this is extremely troubling because, like you said, not only are we selling these weapons, I mean, what happens if we are not going to have, oversight to make sure that everything is meeting the standards and are now going to be sending faulty weapons to our military overseas,
Mhm.
and they need to use these weapons.
Oh, you just froze there. Hopefully, you'll come back in a second. I mean, it's true that there you are. You're back. Sorry, we lost you in that last little bit
Oh,
there. You're talking about the faulty weapons. I mean, they do sell weapons to Ukraine, but they may not want those weapons to be as good as they did before. I mean, I don't know. Anything could happen, right? I mean, so this is a very suspicious move by a man who's really under a lot of pressure already. I mean, the amount of scandals that Hexeth is involved in, including a wiretapping scandal of his own staff using the NSA. I mean, this is really reached quite a critical point that he's still the Secretary of Defense in this administration.
and since we are mentioning the Pentagon, I think this is extremely important to mention. Trump has been going after Harvard and other universities, under the guise of anti-Semitism and after international students. The woman who is now the Pentagon spokesperson basically is one of those conspiracy theorists
Hmm.
who promoted Nazi hateful figures, anti-globalist, attacked Ukraine. I mean, so we have, one of the worst, who is an anti-Semite as the Pentagon press secretary. So just shows
Unbelievable.
you the
Unbelievable.
hypocrisy.
Moving now to the State Department, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced a new policy imposing U.S. visa bans on foreign officials accused of censoring American speech online. The move specifically targets those enforcing global content moderation laws. This means the EU regulators that have been trying to shut down things like Elon Musk's X for disinformation or just disinformation in general under the Digital Services Act, they are going to be sanctioned from coming to America. They're going to not have their visas approved.
Yeah.
Really represents an unusual move. They're calling it free speech, but it's really a protection of disinformation that's going on.
Yeah, it's free speech for, white
Yeah,
supremacists.
yeah,
But if you say anything against Trump or against what Israel is doing, then clearly that's not free speech anymore. That you're not allowed to say.
right.
No, look, Russia has been carrying out, and I mean, they're masters at this. Their disinformation operations are, you know, extremely. I mean,
Mhm.
the West can't even keep up with how sophisticated they are because I mean this is a century worth of a playbook that they've been using successfully, whether it be during the Soviet days or now. And the fact that Russia, spread so much disinformation, Europe finally has caught up how damaging it is domestically for them, to Europe as a whole, to each of their countries, and to NATO, because Russia, especially since the full scale invasion, has really ramped up disinformation operations inside of Europe in order to try to break support for Ukraine. So they finally, I don't know why it took them so long, but they finally, over the past few years, woke up to the seriousness. I mean, this is not just
Mhm.
disinformation floating online. This has real world consequences as far as with elections, with civilians in their countries.
Mhm.
And we saw this during the COVID pandemic when Russia basically was telling people to drink urine, via Americans. Um, and others, and telling people not to trust science. Um, so EU finally has, put measures, and they're perfecting these measures to try to protect people. One, to educate them about disinformation, how to spot it, and two, to try to prevent disinformation flooding the zone everywhere. And now you have the US, who, should be in the normal world, working jointly with Europe, to counter Russian disinformation. Opposite. Now you have the U.S. who wants to impose visa bans on any officials involved in regulating disinformation online on social media. So
You've
it
really
just
hit the
shows you
nail.
how far we've gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beyond. I mean, it would be parody if it was in real life.
Yeah, this policy really does support Russia's efforts to destabilize Europe, to destabilize NATO, to destabilize American democracy. It's a policy that directly allows Russia to continue its disinformation, or tries to allow Russia to continue its disinformation efforts in Europe. And it actually goes against Europe's incredibly smart ways, or beginning to be smart ways, of stopping this disinformation from continuing by actually penalizing these companies, penalizing X or Facebook or others for becoming vehicles of disinformation. So you basically got Marco Rubio out there doing Putin's work again, and we see again and again. And the damage to NATO's alliance, to the NATO alliance, is big, of course. Disinformation is a weapon. And right now, Marco Rubio is busy helping the other team use that weapon in Europe.
Yeah, I have worked on, information warfare, psyops, and disinformation operations for so long. And I mean, it honestly, disinformation is more dangerous. And I've
Mhm.
said this even in 2016. If Russia would have sent a missile to New York, you would have X amount of
Mhm.
casualties, but then the country would rally together and see, a very clear enemy.
Mhm.
Russia's information operations, and including disinformation propaganda, they're like poison, and it's this slow poison that goes through the system. They've
Mhm.
been running it since, frankly, I could tell you when they really, really started. It was in 2007 when they hit Estonia with a cyber attack, which was the first time, I believe, that there was a state actor who carried out a cyber attack that took out a sovereign country, institutions and government and banks and whatnot. At the same time, they also incited the Russians inside of Estonia by feeding disinformation, and it resulted in protests coming out and whatnot. This was the test run to what would happen in 2008 when Russia invaded Georgia. So they have been employing this. I mean, again, this goes back to the days of Akhrana under the Tsars, but they have been employing this playbook for a very long time. Over the past decade, we've seen a very, very growing alignment between Russia, the far right across Europe, and the far right in US. And I'll give you a perfect example. We just had the Romanian elections, and the centrist liberal candidate, by some miracle, finally won. Because Russia, I cannot tell you the amount of operations that they had on the ground, online, to push their, mega pro-Russian sociopathic candidate. Anyway, the centrist liberal won, and you saw Russia immediately going to delegitimize the election, that France is the one who interfered, and that this is an illegal election, it was stolen, whatever. At the same time, you saw Mega pushing the same identical points. I mean, literally, it was coordinated. I would say as soon as the results were, announced, the final results, it was coordinated immediately. Within the hour, you saw both sides. And this is what, Rubio is like worried about, stopping this
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true. It's
and
proven
punishing
fact.
our allies
Yeah,
for
it's
defending against this.
It is proven fact that there are people in the United States working directly for the Kremlin. We've seen it in various DOJ reports. We've seen it through, I can't remember the name right now, but there's a whole group of influencers that are being paid by the
Yes,
Kremlin.
yes.
They were giving talking points every day. They're still giving talking points. You can see the coordinated attempts all the time. Laura Loomer and Johnson and all these guys, they put out the same narrative over and over again. It's the same talking points that come out of the Kremlin. That's who's scripting all of this. And yet here's Marco Rubio out there, helping Russia do this and not putting up an effort to stop it. And as someone pointed out in the chat earlier, they do know better. He knows better. He knows exactly what he's
Absolutely.
doing. And he's been around in the intelligence world long enough to know that what he's doing is helping the other team. We should move to the final story because it's taking a little longer than normal today. But our final story focuses on Trump's nomination of Emil Bove to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Now, Bove, you might remember, is the defense lawyer of Trump during various court cases. He's currently the DOJ enforcer who's led internal purges and pressured prosecutors to drop corruption cases. He also was the guy involved in that New York City Mayor Eric Adams case or settlement, whatever that was. This nomination represents a direct pipeline from Trump's personal legal defense team directly into the appeals court in the Third Circuit. That's a big deal.
Yeah, so you have, this sycophant who basically has carried out and really like he walked in and he started purging career officials, prosecutors of any Trump related cases, between him and Ed Martin, January 6th prosecutions. And he immediately was one of the people who was behind making sure that Eric Adams gets off scot-free as long as he carries out Trump's agenda in New York City. And now Trump, seeing what is happening with the courts and the fact that they're stopping him, obviously, he now is attempting to put in loyalists. I mean, this guy is extremely unqualified. It'll be very interesting to see, if he gets through, because I believe he has to go through a nomination
Yeah, of
hearing.
course. Yeah,
But
through the Senate.
you really, really, really have like one of the extremist sycophants
Mm-hmm.
who he wants to put there. And I mean, a federal appeals court is extremely important because, for instance, any ruling that a court issues goes up to the appeals court.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have this guy who is there unqualified, and on top of it, basically attacking anyone who was defending the rule of law, purging anyone defending law, and this is who, he wants. So we need to put pressure on Congress. I keep saying call Congress, like
Call them.
we should
Call
be
them. It's a
best
good.
friends
Yeah.
with their staff at this point. This is one of those because we cannot, this is a lifetime appointment.
Yeah. Also,
If
he's
it
going to be
was,
so conflicted. I mean, he'll have to recuse himself from everything because, of course, he's
he
the
won't.
president's involved in all these cases anyhow. And then you got Bovey sitting on the appeals court. That's nonsense. That's just a puppet, really, and we can't
That's
have
like
anything like
putting
that.
Steve Miller on the court.
He might do that
Well,
next. I mean, you never know. Look at the
maybe.
people he's pardoning right now. It's insane what he's doing. Anyone who's done any crime who's willing to give him $1 million, say, get out of jail free
Yeah,
card. It's unbelievable.
buy a pardon. He should you said it. He should put a table in front of the White House and just, here, sign up here
A little
for a
pardon
pardon.
kiosk,
Deposit your
get your
million
kiosk,
dollars.
get your pardon over here, everybody. Pardons for everybody. It's really unbelievable. Thank you, Olga Lautman, for another really interesting. I loved your analysis on the disinformation, your analysis off the top of the tariffs. Really reminds us of the stakes and how important it is, and also just the interesting moves that are happening at the Department of State and also at the Pentagon. Always brilliant to have you with me, and it's great to be with you. So everyone should go to the Trump Tyranny Tracker
Likewise.
.substack.com and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. You can find my work at narativ.org, narativ.org. We both welcome subscribers and paid subscribers, so feel free to drop us a good paid subscription as well, because we all need some money to survive. So thank you very much for being here on the Trump Tyranny Tracker in about 35 minutes. I'll be back.
Tune in to your 5 stack.
This is going to be a good 5 stack because we are going to go into into Elon Musk and where in the world is Elon Musk right now?
Actually, you know what? Can we spend one extra minute on
Yeah, yeah,
this? Because I frankly I'm about to write an article about this. The ridiculous media. I'm so tired of attacking media over, everything they've been doing, but they're really not
facts.
meeting the moment at
Hmm.
all. Not even
Yeah,
close. But the media is sitting and like running a, basically a PR thing that Musk has left the building and that's it. He physically might not be there. His operatives and the Palantir operatives are embedded in every single agency. So, I mean, you know what? With the media sitting and claiming and giving whitewashing him to try to help him sell his Teslas, you know, and rehabilitate his image. I mean, we should have a separate episode on how
yeah.
Russia whitewashes reputations of people, that operation. But here, the media for free is sitting there and whitewashing this man, separating him in order to try to gaslight us that we did not see what we saw since January 20th.
Yeah, he has also probably absconded with so much data that belongs to the
Oh,
US government or did belong to the US government, so much personal data of every American, plus an inside knowledge of how the thing works now that nobody else has.
no,
And plus grants and all the regulatory stuff he got away with. I mean, we'll cover it all at 3 o'clock with Dean Blundell and me, and we'll talk about it again. I'm sure tomorrow when we do the Trump Tyranny Tracker on day 130. Thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate you
thank
joining
you.
us, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.